Hi, everyone, and welcome to our ITLNCA network series of interview with successful foreign trained lawyers who landed a summer in law position through on-campus interviews. Today, we have with us Yemisi, who recently completed her summer program with BLG. So welcome, Yemisi.
Hi, Yonida. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. So we want to discuss a bit about your background, like what experience you brought with you from back home, um, and what did you study, and when did you move to Canada?
Okay, so I'm a lawyer. I was trained in Nigeria. I have a common law degree in law from Nigeria. I had practiced in Nigeria for about 5 years, and I decided to move to Canada to do my master's and just try something different. So I moved to Canada in August 2017, and I started the Osgood program like straight up. I was enrolled in the international business law. I know a couple of students also did the NCA. The common law, I think it's called the common law LLM, where you don't have to do the NCAs. I just wanted to do something that was business because I had that background in business and I wanted to be able to be able to broaden my knowledge. So I moved in 2017 and I started the master's program right off the bat. So at Osgood, I remember it was when I moved to Canada that I started hearing things like, I'd known about the NCAs, but I didn't know there was an option to do the Canadian common law. I'm betting that if I had known, I would have probably done that one instead of doing the business law. But anyways, all good. I started at the master's, and from there, the master's was for 1 year. I remember going for all my courses and meeting people. And after the masters were done, I was finished. Then I started the NCA process and was doing the NCA exams.
Okay, perfect. So how many courses did you take through Osgood for your NCAs?
So for my NCAs, I was assessed to do 5 courses, and I did 3 courses in Osgood, and then I did the 2 outside. I know at the time people were like, "Oh, don't do that. It'll disrupt your transcripts. You want to make sure you have a." And I was like, I already picked all the core business courses, so it's like I still have room to do a little bit of here. And I think in Osgood you do the Canadian constitutional law, I believe, and it covers foundations and constitutional law, if I'm
Public
correct.
law, public and
One of them,
constitution.
yes.
Yeah.
So that I did that, and then I also did admin in Osgood as well. But I did the criminal law and PR myself. I read for it. I just got the materials. I got the syllables. I know a lot of people ask me, "Oh, what did you study with? Did you buy textbooks? I just printed out the syllabus from the NCA website, and I just studied using those materials. I did get the book for criminal law. I was finding some of the concepts were a bit foreign, so I had to get the textbook. And for the exams, yes, I just self-studied, and then I went in and then I wrote the exams myself. So I finished my exams in 2019, which was just last year, because I was trying to do some other things and get work done as well.
Okay, perfect. And then in the meantime, after you completed your Osgood LLM, when exactly did you learn about how the process works, about the OCIs or infirms?
So about the OCIs, I'll tell you one thing. Osgood is very good at keeping you up to speed with the OCIs. So I remember when we started the program manager, I think it was Michael Tam. He would because you have the professional recruiters, they'll tell you about these things. It's Osgood Professional Development, and so there's Michael, and I've forgotten her name now. She's the head of the program. They would come in and then talk to us about the OCIs. So I started knowing about the OCIs when I got there. Fortunately for me, I didn't know the month, because I got to Canada in August, and they were just doing the OCIs, I think September, October, but I didn't know at that period. So I missed that cycle. I didn't apply for the 2018, 2019 cycle because I didn't know it was new. But the next cycle, and once you start doing the program, Osgood is very good at keeping you abreast. You register, you go on the portal, you can see applications and cycles that are open. And I bet I must have spent every day just doing resumes, applying to that thing, making sure it's good. I had a couple meetings with Michael Tam. just to sit down and, talk about my resume, like what you need to change. And I remember one of my meetings, Michael had told me, he's like, you have to be more, because where I'm from, we don't do too much. With resumes, and he's like, you have to put in, deals that you've worked in, transactions that I don't know if it's the same thing in jurisdiction where you're from. Okay, so he's like, you have to be able to put in, your experiences, so that way you can be able to showcase and highlight, different things that you've done. So I did all of that. Michael was very helpful, and you submit the applications. I found out about VI portal, like just things that you just don't know, but then you start to know just because you took the course at Osgood, or I don't know, I think now information is starting to get publicly available. But then I think for me, the course, just doing that master's at Osgood really helped me, because I started to know things that I didn't ordinarily know and I didn't actually anticipate. But when I got into the course, I started thinking about it, and I was like, okay, you know what, it's fine. I can actually do this. And, this is what you do to get to where you want to be. And I must have had like a bunch of meetings with Michael. I kept going back and forth, just going into his office, sitting down, drafting my resume. And something about, the Canadian legal process, it's your cover letter. Like, I would say it is the most important thing that you want to make sure that you get right. Like, your resume it's your bio, but your cover letter is your story. That's the way I see it. It's like, what is the story behind this bio that we're looking at? So I remember Michael was telling me, just focus on your cover letter. You have to keep working on it. And I kept doing that, and I kept applying for different positions. I would say that I probably was doing something wrong. Maybe I was doing, too many things, because I applied for the 2018 the 2018, 2019 cycle. I didn't get any. I got some, feedback or, resumes there, but we would, be going with other candidates, blah, blah, blah. So I didn't get anything that year. So, well, all good anyways.
So that year you applied for articling, not for summer?
Yeah. No, not for summer. So at the time I was just focusing on articling, and I didn't finish. When I finished the master's I finished my master's in 2018. That's when I started doing my NCA. Yep. And I wanted to get a job as well. So I started applying for legal assistant, law clerks. I wanted to do something that wasn't too far off from my background that I'd had. I was also looking at compliance officer roles, because I have a bit of experience in compliance and corporate law as well. So I focused most of my energy on doing that. And I was going for a lot of interviews and just trying to find the right place that I felt like I wanted to be, because I know it wasn't at the time, I wasn't focusing on doing the articling at that point, because I just wanted to get a job that would, align me with doing something that I wanted. And I didn't want to I know a lot of people say, oh, you have options. You can do the LPP, you can do the articling, or you can get an exemption. So I just put it in my mind. I had like a ranking. I was like, first is to get an articling. And if I don't get an articling, I'll do the LPP. And if I don't do the LPP, I will get an exemption. But first off, while I'm trying to, start my NCAs and do that, I wanted to get a job in a field that would take me one step closer when I wanted to apply for those jobs that I was looking at in corporate firms.
I see. And so your priority was to find a job. So did you secure the job before you got back to applying for articling or summer positions, or
yes.
Did that happen? Okay. And did you work for a while?
Yes, I did. I'd worked for a while, because one thing I'd heard over and over again from people was, you have to have Canadian experience. You have to have Canadian experience. I heard it so much that it's not like your experience from your foreign experience is discounted, or it's not that. They just want to know, like, because it's something Osgood puts in your head, or like, oh, you have to have, some sort of Canadian experience. You have to be able to Canadianize your resume. I'd heard those two words, like, it's like they go hand in hand. You want to be able to Canadianize your resume, and you also want to be able to have Canadian experience. So I'd heard it so much that I was like, okay, it makes sense that if I'm applying and I'm telling people that I have, this experience from back home, which obviously I know my experience. I'm like, nobody's going to discount the work that you've done, because that you're a lawyer, you've trained for this, you've done all this process. But I was like, okay, I want them to also be able to see my resume and be like, okay, so she knows, like, she has this experience. Well, she's also willing to be able to, like, do something else and try, get like a job in her field. So I think between that time when I was doing my NCAs, I just told myself I will take because the cycle is the way it's designed, it's almost 1 year. If you miss the cycle now, you have to wait till the next year to be able to apply. So I was like, it's almost a year. I might as well just take this to do something that's close to my field. And so that way, when it's time for me to send out my applications again, I'm ready to say, oh, I have this, experience, and also put it on my resume. So I did take that 1 year off. And I wouldn't say take it off per se. I just took it to focus on getting a job that was close to the legal field, and in an area that I was interested in doing, because I'm interested in corporate finance and securities. So I got a job with an investment management firm, and I started working there as a legal clerk. And while I was working, I was doing the essays at the same time, like just studying and just doing the essays as well.
Perfect. That's a common story about finding something in between to help you like gain some Canadian experience or whatever it's called, and then use that experience to not only the experience itself, and this is something that I wanted to go back to, it's basically finding networks and creating your network and finding mentors, because the industry you're getting into, you will find someone that besides Osgood, they will review your cover letter and they will give you a different advice on a different perspective, like the recruiter's perspective, because Osgood, yes, prepares you about like how to be the perfect person on paper, but they know exactly what they're looking for because they are the recruiters. If it's not the investment firm, it's definitely going to be a law firm or a bank or whoever the recruiter is. So did you use this opportunity to network and to have someone to find mentors outside Osgood?
Okay, yes. So I think I would say yes, because at the time when I started looking for jobs, I'd gotten a different job as a lease administrator with a real estate firm, but well, not a lease, like a real estate company. And I'd started the job, and 1 month into it, I was like, if I keep doing this, like, it's not like it's bad. It was a great job, but I was like, this isn't where I want to be. And I have to leave now. If I don't leave right now, I'll probably get stuck here. So I remember I was still actively applying because the jobs that I really wanted, they weren't getting back to me, as fast as I wanted to. So I was like, okay, I'll just start doing this one and I'll keep going with it and I'll get somewhere. But yes, at the same time, Osgood prepares you. And I remember they used to have, they have the Osgood International Trained Lawyers Day, where they bring lawyers in and then you meet people, you network people. That's something that's also very important. It's networking. It's something that for me, I'd say I'm more of like an introvert in a way, like usually quiet. I really don't know how to say, but it's like, your profession makes you want to do that. You have to network. Like, it might be some people are very proactive with networking and they're very good at it. That's fine. If you're not that person, you can still find your own ways to network. There are people who are similar to you. We don't do, the extra, but you can find somebody who's just willing to, like, oh yes, I just send one email a day to one person, or like a LinkedIn connect, and I'll wait a couple of days and see if they respond to me. Some people are just like, they send like a whole list, like boom, boom, boom. They just keep going. And so I did start networking, and I was very fortunate enough. And this was because I'd met people through the Osgood International Trained Lawyers Day. We'd had events, and just lawyers who had taught us in Osgood. I've been able to like network with those people as well, and just to sit down and make you look at your resume and be like, okay, you want it to go like this, you want to say this, you want to say that. So yes, I did leverage on that network and people that I had met through the process, even after we finished and I left school, and I was still trying to go for events. You'd go for like OBA events, you'd go for different kinds of events. So it's like you have to keep yourself within the profession, because if you stray too far, it's not very kind. You might lose track of a few things, or like lose touch with people. So I was going for events. I would work after work. If I saw that there was an event, I'd go. I remember like the city cable would have events, I would go. The OVA would have events, I would go. The firms would have like in-firm interviews, I would go for this thing. So it's just like scheduling your day. You just have to be able to prioritize, because in my mind it's like, it's happening next year. They're having this in-firm so that people can meet people, and you have to keep going. That's when I realized that it wasn't that I was doing anything particularly wrong with my resume. I just wasn't networking and meeting the people that I was supposed to meet, or let's put it like that. Because it's one thing to just sit down at home and just type your resume and put your cover letter together and just send it off. Just type you can do. I was doing that. I was like, garbage in, garbage out. I was just sending so many resumes. Like, I would go on VI portal and I would apply every single one. And I didn't like particularly tailor my resume to suit the firm needs, because if there's one thing, you have to be honest with yourself. When I sat down, I was like, what am I doing wrong? Am I doing something any different? So why is it that every other person is getting callbacks? I'm not getting callbacks. And I was like, okay, did I do something wrong? So it was just going for those events, listening to people talk, listening to lawyers tell their story and their practices and how it's like, you get there, like you said, but it just takes time, and you have to be able to build your own network. So I remember that. I remember one day I sat down, I was like, okay, yes, so now I know what I'm doing. I should be sitting down. I should, think about why I want to be at this firm, the things, the culture that they have, the practice area that they have, because there are lots of firms. It's like it's not like I don't have an interest in, there's some parts of law that I'm not very good at it. So it's like, why would I want to be applying to a firm that specializes in family law when my background, yes, and my background is all corporate and business and transactional. And it's like when they see my resume, they're like, okay, we don't get it. Or like a criminal firm. So I sat down, I was like, yes, I was just, sending out mass applications, and it wasn't working for me at the time. So yes, just going out, meeting people and having those networks, I would say they really helped.
Yes, absolutely. So I have 2 points on what you mentioned. The events that you attended, were they specifically on how to prepare your application package, like those mentoring events, or they were just any event that these law firms like schedule? Like it can be on a practice area, it can be for their clients.
To be honest, no, they weren't specifically on how to tailor your resume. So Osgood is very good at having events that help you do that, like how to network, how to tailor your resume, how to draft a cover letter. I remember going to the student services. I think they have the student services career. And that's not just for Osgood. I think it's for York students in general. I remember going for one of those events as well. And I sat down with the lady, and she was talking about, you have to structure your resume like this. But what she was saying at the time to me was contradicting what Michael had told me. And I was like, I probably shouldn't, be here. Like, as much as it's a career, like, student page, they don't know how law, operates, like the specific needs. So I was just like, okay, I'm not going to come for one of these things again. And for the other OBA events, there were just things that I had an interest in, that I was going for. And that was the opportunity for me to network with other lawyers that I just hadn't met, or lawyers who were in the field that I wanted to get into. Because OBA, I think they have like little sections of like things you can do, like business law section. That way you narrow down your list. I don't have to go into construction law and try to go for an event in construction law, because if I go to that event, I have nothing to say or nothing to contribute. So I would go for like events that were mostly related to like capital markets, business law. I think young lawyers, those were like the top 3 that I subscribed for. And for the other events, I had to do with like Cable, the Toronto Lawyers Association, and Osgood event. Those kind of events, they help you, like they'll have like a package, like how to do speed networking or speed recruiting, looking at your resume, telling you, do this, don't do that. So I think those, you just have to be able to put the buckets in your head. That's how I put it personally to myself.
Exactly. And it's very important for students, foreign trained lawyers who come to Toronto as students, to take advantage of the fact that they can register with the OBA for free, usually as a student, and attend those events. And that's a great opportunity to network with the practitioners that are the prominent practitioners in the areas that they have an interest in. The other question I had, and I think it was more of a remark, because you mentioned something that is very useful. When VLO portal posts 150 positions for articling or summer, students may be advised to just apply broadly, because especially the students that have a timeline in mind and want to be called. But you mentioned something that is very, in my opinion, is very accurate, that when you know what you want, when you're not coming to Canada to become any lawyer, when you know that you become a business lawyer, it's very important that you tailor your application package, but you also apply to those positions that resonate with you. Because if you apply to the criminal law position, one, you will have to translate your experience to everything that you've gained, to adjust it to the requirements, because they will ask you why criminal law, like your background is not in criminal law, and family law too. And if you apply to those positions, you really have to be very impressive to be better than a student that has a background in family law. So that's a good point. So you applied for articling positions in VLO portal, and did you hear back?
Oh yes, I did. I did hear back. I got a couple of responses from firms. You get the standard, rejections where happy, your resume looks very fantastic, but unfortunately, and then when you get to that part, I'm just like, okay, yeah, thank you very much. And it's no hard feelings. It's just like you said, the recruiters, they're looking for something. They want to be able to like read your resume, and sometimes it's maybe a line, a paragraph in your resume, or it's a cover letter that just, they're hooked, and they're like, okay, fine, let's see what this person's got to offer. And so I reapplied again. I missed the first rounds. I reapplied again. I sat down. I did everything. I was like, okay, fine. Let's do it this time. And I did get some feedback. I got some responses back. I think at the time I'd interviewed with MAG. I'd interviewed with the city of Toronto as well. But I just didn't get like an articling position on call day. I just didn't get a call back. So I was just like, oh, another one. I missed another one. So I was just like, what do I do now? And I wouldn't say I was sad or whatever it is. It's just life. These things happen. I was like, okay, at least I got a call back. It's better than the first time I didn't get anything. So I was like, okay, so something's definitely working. And I remember at the time the NCAA OCIs just started the process, and interviews, I think the applications were due October 26th. I think I remember the dates in my head now, because the applications were due just right after. And I was like, at the time I was like, oh, it's a 2L position. I don't want to apply for summer position. I should be applying for an articling position, because that's what I'm supposed to do. Everybody has a standard, plan, like a trajectory that you should be. You should, when you finish a master's, you should go straight up and you should article. And if you were to summer, you should have summered in school. So during that time, and I remember just thinking about it, and I was like, oh, I don't want to do this. Sorry, just chair. And I was like, okay, I think it was a couple weeks before, and I was like, look, at the end of the day, I'm somebody who has always gone after the experience. To me, it's the experience that matters. And like you said, if you know where you want to be, you will. I found that the time that I spent just doing thousands of applications on VI, if somebody had told me at the time not to do those things, you would probably think the person just didn't want your best interest. You'd be like, no, I have to apply for everything. I have to go in there. But if somebody had told me, like literally told me, don't do that. Just find the specific firms that you really are interested in, network with those firms, and then just put your application package together. So I remember like when I heard that the NCAA OCIs were coming up, I was like, okay, I have to do better this time. So I remember I sat down and I started preparing my application. There's nothing I will tell you that worked for me than preparing. I prepared for I took it like a full-time job at that time. So I would sit down and I was like, for a 2L position, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to give it my all. I will put my resume, I'll put my package together, I'll draft a cover letter. I started networking with people, reaching out to people in the firms that I felt like I wanted to work at. And the NCOC had a list. I think it was 11 or 9 firms. I can't remember at this point. And of the 11, I believe it was 11 or 9, I only applied to 5. I picked the 5 that I wanted and I was very interested in. And I was like, these 5 are the people that I'm going to commit myself to. And I was like, if I don't hear back, it means that I've literally exhausted all my options. And I was like, at this point, I probably might just go do, the LPP or something else. But I remember like, there was one thing that I was very, very, you have to be very confident in yourself. And I sat down and I started doing the application. I think maybe one package probably took me a week or maybe less. Depends on the day after work that I had so much more time to sit down and draft my cover letter. Like your resume is it's pretty standard. Like there's so much you can flip around for your resume. But for your cover letter, like I said, it's something that you want to be able to, because if they have your bio, they want to know the story behind this person. And your cover letter is a way for them to be able to like see you and like, just want to get to know you better. So I sat down and I would take like, maybe 2 days, just put my story together, put everything that, make sure you're proofreading, because sometimes you're proofreading, but you miss little things, to be honest. And it's all, part of like, being human, you'll miss something. And when I finished, I remember I didn't send each application out one at a time. No, I drafted every single cover letter. I had a folder for every single firm. And in that firm, I put all my application documents together. I put everything that I wanted to. Some firms were a bit different from some because I'd expressed different interests in things that I'd wanted to do. And I also, between the time, long before then, I'd been networking with some lawyers at the firm or just speaking with associates or articling students. And I know a lot of people, it's kind of daunting to like reach out to people But I found that people are very nice and very open to like talking about their practice, telling you, what worked for them. Just because it worked for somebody else doesn't mean it will work for me, but it's just nice to know. And I found like, just reaching out to the lawyers at the firm, asking them for help. It was really, really helpful to me. I know a lot of lawyers were like, even if they were like super busy, they always would like, okay, why don't we have a 10-minute call? I'm busy right now, but I'll have a 10-minute call with you. I'll explain to you, like, you talk to me. So I found that really helpful, just talking to the lawyers, having coffees, because it's after work, during my lunch break, I would go for a coffee, I'd network with somebody, I'd go back. So it was kind of stressful, but I found like just doing those things alone, networking with people really did help me when I was ready to put my application package together for the OCIs.
Exactly. I feel like this is the most important thing that students should take away with it, because this is the recipe of landing a summer position or an articling position. You may have the perfect application, but unless you have put the effort to network with the people that will be hiring you or will be interviewing you to show that interest, you really have to be that golden medalist to make them interested in you without having met with them before.
Exactly.
So that is very important. So you had already drafted your cover letter, but you took the time to adjust it and to change it every time. How did your story change behind that? Because it's important to put your story out there.
Yes.
It's not only about your interests, it's how your interests are tied to who you are.
Mm-hmm. So I think at the time when I'd sat down, because the thing is, sometimes you don't actually get to the people who I was networking with weren't necessarily like the recruiters themselves. They were just lawyers, like students that I'd met or I'd seen their profile, and I was like, oh my God, the profile looks so nice. Like I really want to, be able to do deals that she's working on or transactions that she's working on. And I was going for a lot of events. And at these events, I remember going for one of the events that one of the firms had held at the time. And I remember what the speaker at the time, she was talking about, your elevator pitch, like what is it? And I know that elevator pitch helped me, because after that day, and every single, coffee dates that I was going after that day, I can tell you that it changed, because just that 5-10 minutes I was using to introduce myself, I was like, oh, hi, I'm Yemisi, or, this is what I am, this is what I was doing. Just that, sending emails back, I was getting better feedback as against, just trying to cold call people, sending long emails with like 10 paragraphs, or like just meeting people up. Even LinkedIn, I just having that elevator pitch, I would say, I turned it into my coffee pitch, to be honest. And she talked about it, and she's like, you have to be able to have like a quick short sentence that introduces you in a very engaging, and it's like we want to know more about you. Oh, so really, that's nice. Okay, so tell me more about you. So I think for me, I just going for these events and then meeting people, it really did help me. And it wasn't like I didn't change too much about my cover letter, to be honest, but I put something that was, very specific, that I felt that I had a connection with that firm. So I remember applying to like the firms that I had applied, every single one of my cover letter to those firms was different. I didn't do the exact same thing for them, because I had a different story. I had a different interaction. I'd had a different experience when I met them. And it wasn't just maybe I didn't meet any of the recruiters, to be honest. It was just the people that I'd met at the firm and the feeling and the vibe that I'd gotten from them. Some people are like, oh yes, my firm is like, we're like all out for this, but at the end of the day, we're like cool, chill. So I had different experiences from different people. And so I tailored those experiences that I'd gained from meeting those people into my resume. So it's like some I didn't even meet in person, just speaking to them over the phone. They're like, okay, this is what it is, this is what it is. And I didn't have to put names in my resume or anything. For some people, I'd met some people. For some firms, I didn't meet anybody, but just the experience of just having that conversation with them, talking about what the firm does, the trajectory of where the firm's going to, how they, look at their recruitment process, like holistically and everything. I was able to tailor that. And I would say, yes, it did. It worked for me. It's just, I made sure that I didn't do the exact same thing for every firm. I wanted my story on my cover letter to be different from every firm.
That's amazing. So you mentioned that you didn't write because it's usually they advise you that when you meet someone from a firm, you should include that in your cover letter. Mm-hmm. That I'm applying to your firm because I like this and this and this, as I spoke with this and this person. And you mentioned that you didn't do that. That's interesting.
Well, I did for 2 firms, because I personally, for the people that I didn't meet in person, I didn't put their names down because I was just like, I had the connection enough just over the phone. And I'd met, to be honest, I met a lot of people. I can't list everybody in here.
Yes.
There's just so many people that I can list. So I just grouped them into one bucket. And I was like, I've spoken to a few partners or people at the firm, and this is the experience that I've gotten. For two, I was very specific because I'd had that interaction with them, because you don't want to come off as, you've been seeing this person when you haven't actually seen. There's something about meeting somebody in person and having that relationship, like establishing that connection. And it wasn't just, you just don't meet somebody the first time and be like, oh yes, I'm just going to throw that name on my resume. And no, it just doesn't work like that. I had established those relationships with those people, and I was comfortable enough that I know that I could put their names, on my cover letter at the same time. But if I just had a conversation with you, or I'd met you for one coffee, and we'd like people are very nice, don't get me wrong, they'll help you. They want to see, they want to see you succeed. Like they want to see that you get somewhere. But I just wasn't comfortable, like, putting this person's name and saying like, yeah, we had 10 coffee dates, or I met. No, I just decided to group, because you talk to a bunch of people, and like, who do I want to say? I'm not going to pick somebody who is that I didn't have that connection with. So the firm for the firms that I did put names on, they're people that I was very comfortable enough to be able to put their names down on there. For the rest, I didn't, to be honest. I just grouped them in one bucket. I was just like, this is it.
That's very important. And because usually that person may be asked and if they don't even remember you, what's the point?
Exactly. It's like, and you're going to go back and tell every single person, oh, I put your name in there. I put your name in there. And no, it just doesn't work.
Exactly. So, and besides that part, did you have anyone review your application before you sent it in?
Oh yes, I must have called every single person that I that I know that was on working or had done articling positions. I have friends from Osgood or people that I'd met from events, and I'd reached out to them. I'm like, can you have a look at my resume? Can you let me know if you have any changes? Oh yes, I did. I must have sent my resume to like a ton of people to just review, because. And as much as, to be honest, I'm not gonna lie, as much as I was reviewing, I probably was still missing things that I shouldn't have missed. But because you feel like this is so important, you're like super focused on like looking at it. And they don't lie when they say you have to take that time. Recruiters don't lie when they say you have to take that time to put together a package that just works. It has to work for you. It's not something that, you pick up the internet because they have a template. It doesn't work that way. They go through a ton of these resumes, so I can understand how, like, thinking about it right now, I was like, yeah, I can see why I wasn't getting any positions before, because they have to be able to see something that's a bit different, or not just different, like something that's like, okay, fine, what's so engaging, or what's different about this cover letter that I'm looking at? Because they'll look at your resume, but then it's your cover letter that just, it gets you some sort of interview, at the very least. It might not get you the job, to be honest, because at the end of the day, it's how you go into those interviews that determines that, but it gets you somewhere in the first place. So it's like, for me, just getting those callbacks. So for every one feedback that I got was positive, I was like, okay, yeah, it means something is working. I'm changing something from when I wasn't getting any callbacks at all, or just getting rejections and no. So I was just like, okay, yes, this isn't working for me. But yeah.
Exactly. And having a genuine application, like, reflects who you are, because you may oversell yourself, and then when you present yourself in those interviews, they will see that that's not you.
They would see right through you, for sure.
So let's go to the OCI interviews.
Mm-hmm.
How was that experience? How many firms? You mentioned you applied only to 5 firms.
I applied only to the 5, and I got callbacks from 3.
Amazing.
I to be honest, I think it was 11 firms, to be honest, because I think some people got more interviews, and I was feeling really bad. I was like, I got only 3, but I was like, well, out of the 5, I got 3, and I'm like, okay, this works for me. So I think the in firms, I'd heard so much about, like, the OCIs, and it was the OBA. They were very good at, putting an NCA OCI. They'll tell you, look, this is a structure, this is how it goes. And coming from Osgood, we'd heard about the OCIs, like, like it's an in-firm thing. And a lot of students, we don't get to, maybe the master students, I know, like the JD students, it's their bread and butter, like that's it. Well, so I feel like for the master students, a lot of people don't really get to experience that OCI process in school. So I hadn't really done it before, but I remember like the OCIs, the NCAA OCI, they put out like the instructions, you go, it's like, meet and greet. So I'd gone for a lot of those speed resume review sessions and interview prep sessions that I'd become familiar enough to like, know what it was. But on that day itself, it was very different. Like I remember getting there, we sat down, you get a lot of time slots, and you would have to prep. And interviews, I remember I had one of the most fantastic interviews with one of the firms that I'd gone into. Like all the firms I met, don't get me wrong, everybody was great. You feel nervous at first, I'm not gonna lie, because it's like, oh my God, I only have 10 minutes, or I think it was 14 minutes to just say what you have to say, and you have to sell yourself to the firm. Like, and that's how they say you have to sell yourself to the firm. But I didn't think about it as selling myself to the firm. I was like, okay, I sent out my application, so these 3 people actually want me. So I have to find, that's how I told myself. I was like, okay, so now they want me. So I just have to figure out, how to bring that energy. And like you said, people, you have to be genuine. There's nothing as being, genuine, and you have to be confident, you have to be deliberate, you have to put yourself out there, because I think I was really putting myself out there. I was pushing my comfort zone. I was way out at this point, because usually I just want to stay indoors, chill, and not do much. But I was doing, things that you go for these events and you hear people say it all the time: network, meet people, try to do things out of your comfort zone. Like, don't be, one-sided. You should have a life outside of law. Like, what are your interests? Like, what do you like to do? So I was taking all those little things. And so interview day came, and I was really, really nervous. And I remember one of the interviews I got, and they were like, it's okay, it's chill. You don't have to do anything special. It's just a conversation. And at first they were very nerve-wracking, because when you hear like the time's up and then you have to switch and then you have to leave and then you come back in, it was just too much at the same time. I didn't even know. It's like, I was like, whoa, how do people do this? Like, how does JD students actually sit and do this? But I think my interviews went pretty well. I would say every individual that I met, every recruiter that I met, they were absolutely lovely. And I went in, I answered the questions that they asked me. I asked questions at the same time, because it's a conversation. Like, they want to know you just as much as I wanted to know more about the firm. Like, this is my opportunity to ask more questions. And now this is directly at the recruiter, because it's not the lawyers anymore that I was like networking with. These are the people who, like, they've sat down, they've read my resume, so they're like, okay, they know something, at least a bit about me. So I was like, okay, this is my point to just go in, have this conversation with this person, and just try and I don't know how to put the word, establish, like, why you want to be at that firm again. So yeah,
establish a connection. Exactly.
very young. Yes.
So you mentioned that you had already exercised, or you how to give them your elevator pitch. So that was that helpful during those, because they usually start with, tell us about yourself.
Yes, there is nothing like, to me, I'd refine the elevator pitch to my coffee pitch. So because I'd said it over and over again at like coffee meets, or like trying to introduce myself, even just typing it and sending it on LinkedIn to people, I'd mastered the art of like what my elevator pitch was. So when I got in and they're like, tell me about yourself, I'm saying not the exact same thing, but it comes naturally to you after a while. And so you would say that, and then the conversation would, bounce up to like, okay, fine, we've looked at this. And it was, to me, it was an interview, but it was still more like they were trying to get to know me, as against like they've seen my package. They know that, oh, this is what she's done. She's done most of this. And it was more of a 10-minute, let me know more about you kind of thing. So I wouldn't say it was it was formal, but it wasn't too heavily formal. Like, they want to know about you. They want to see how you can translate, like, oh, this is your resume, this is what you've done. And so it was for me to just sit down, give them my elevator pitch, and just tell them more about me that wasn't covered already in my application package as well.
And you already knew about the firms because you had already got in touch with them, so you had prepared questions better than the generic ones that someone that doesn't know about the firm can prepare.
I mean, yes, because I'd spend time on the websites, because there's nothing as much as going on the firm's website when I wanted to do my application package. So when I narrowed the 5 that I wanted to do, I chose those firms because they had a very extensive practice in the area that I was interested in looking, and their culture, just the culture of people that I met and knowledge. I met with a bunch of people. I networked with lawyers. But for me, it was just about, I have to find a firm that I know, I don't know how to say this. It's not, I don't want to use the word fit, because fit isn't the word that I'm looking for. I spend so much time on the website, and when you spend so much time on the website, you read things about the firm, you know things about the firm, and sometimes it's like you just little things, like just events or things that they've done recently, or a transaction or a deal that they just closed. So I looked at those firms and I was like, oh, this transaction sounds nice. And then I looked at the lawyers who had done those deals, and I was like, oh, fine, this is what I wanted to do. So I done my research. I looked at the website. They'll tell you these things because you have to know. You want to know from the back of your mind, like, oh, where do you want to be? So I narrowed it down. So yes, I had some, I prepared my questions properly because I just wanted to ask. And I think for the interviews, if you express an interest, because I think in my cover letter, I'd expressed my interest that I wanted to be in corporate law. I think for some, I specifically said that I wanted to be in investments and corporate finance because I'd been working in an investment firm. So it's just easier for me to transition, that skill into that practice area. So I think they came with somebody or like a lawyer who was in that area, and so it was easy for you to they'll ask you questions because they want to know. And so I remember one of my interviews that they'd ask me about finance and stuff like that. I was like, oh yeah, this is it, and I know a lot of people just don't know right off the bat what they're interested in, like what area of law they're interested in. And it's okay. You don't have to know where you want to, what exactly you want to specialize in or what you want to do. I just happen to know because I felt like I've done corporate law from, my home country for a while. And I was like, okay, I would like to focus on this. And this is an area that I'd seen like a lot of people, a lot of mentors that I looked up to, they were like in areas like this, women in capital markets, just even the men in capital markets. So I was just like, okay, yes, this is definitely where I want to be. So I would say yes. I spent so much time just prepping questions, and every question for every firm was just different, like I said.
Of course. You mentioned that they brought lawyers in the areas that you have demonstrated an interest in. Did you know the names of your interviewers?
No, actually.
Before?
Okay, so to be honest, it wasn't the OCIs. It was the actual interview when you get the call. Yes, the info. Sorry, my bad. So it was just for the interview itself. The recruiters, I think they came with like a second recruiter, and they'll just ask you questions from your resume or your cover letter. But the interviews go by so fast, like. And the next thing you know, you're like, grabbing your bag and you have to like get up because you have to leave, and then somebody else has to come back in. It went by so fast, but I think it was like speed dating technically. So yes, it really went by so fast. But I think I remember like for every individual that I made, because it was just three firms, and I just took like a piece of paper. And I just drew like a line. I put the firms, I put the questions that I wanted to ask, I put the people that I'd over the time like spoken to, or just in case it came up, but it didn't come up. 10 minutes, 12 minutes, it's not a lot of time to like, go into specifics and detail. They just want to know how well you interview, how well you conversate, how well you're able to communicate that, oh, fine, you send your package. So is this really, really what you want? This is where you want to be. So yes, technically that's how it works.
Did they ask you any behavioral questions? Did they ask you any technical questions? Because you had done some courses at Osgood in the fields that you wanted to. Did they ask you anything about that?
So for the OCI interviews, I would say, I think they did, but I don't remember. It feels like it was one of the other. They will ask you like a skill, like a question about, it's either going to be about your education or your work experience. I think it's usually always about work experience. Recruiters want to be able to see you have a diverse experience. It doesn't necessarily have to be law. It doesn't have to be the traditional law all the time. I remember I'd done an internship for 3 months at Access Law. It was just an internship. I put that in there, and she was like, oh, you did an internship while you were, at Osgood. And I was like, oh, yes, I did. And, just something, they'll pick something. It doesn't necessarily have to be, I know a lot of people just strive and be like, you have to get a job as a law clerk, get a job as a legal clerk. Yes, it is nice if you want to keep, but if you have other interests outside of that, and you do that as well, they'll just pick something from your resume. I think one of the lawyers should ask me about, you worked as an intern here, like real estate. I see it's a bit different from what you've done. And I think she also talked about my volunteer experience, because I've been doing a lot of volunteering. I volunteered at the family court. So I done like family for like 3 months. So she's like, okay, I see, this is a bit different from like corporate law and all the things that you used to do. So she'd ask about that. And they also asked about my interests, like, what you like to do outside of work when you're not working. But because interviews go by so fast, you really can't remember those things. But I know they'll touch on like one piece of everything. So it's not just because there are always like two, I think. Yeah, there was two people. One person will probably ask you a question about that's more like, legal related, or that has to do with your core resume. And then another person will ask you about your interests, or like some hobbies, or something that you've done, or what you like to do. So I would say that's how it worked for me.
And then after those interviews, did you follow up with like thank you emails?
Good question. I don't think so. I'm trying to think about it now. Yes, I did actually, to be honest, because when you meet them, you'll exchange contacts, right? I think that's how I hadn't met these recruiters before, and I know it was just the interview. I was like, yeah, who knows? Might work, might not work. I don't know. We'll see how it is. But I remember leaving, and they each gave me their business card. So yes, I did follow up actually. I just, after the interview, I think it was the next day. I didn't do it that day. I think it was the next day. I just said, thank you emails. I was like, it's a pleasure meeting you at the NCAA OCI Networks. Thank you for interviewing me. It was just something simple, straight to the point, 2-3 lines. You don't need to, go into like specifics or whatever it is. And then because I think you get to know, because they'll contact the NCAA OCI, and then NCAA OCIs will let you know if you've gotten an infirm. I can't remember if that's how it goes now or anything. But yes, you just something simple, straight to the point, and they just responded like, thank you, it was a pleasure meeting you as well. That's it, nothing out of the ordinary. But yes, I did.
That's perfect. And then how does the process work? Did you were invited for infirms? How many firms out of the 3?
So I think you get to, I'm trying to remember if the email comes, because you had to wait. I'm trying to remember how the NCAA OCI went again. I think we had to wait till we got like, some sort of call, or was it a call we got, or did we get some sort of email to say, oh, these firms will be reaching out to you? Because at first we would get the, oh, welcome to this, and then the OCI day, we also got that as well. I'm trying to remember student feedback. Let's see. This is it. And no, you had to wait for a particular day for you to get the call. And I think I got the call back. Was it a call back I got? I'm trying to remember. Sorry, my memory's all fuzzy now. But yes, I think you get an email or something, and then they invite you for the infirms. So you know that. So
they call you to set up the time that you will be available for the infirms. Does that work? Because that's what works with JD students.
Yes, that's what I was going to. Yes, so it goes. They have a call day where they call all. They call the students that they pick. So I think the way it worked was the NCAA OCI. They've done the interview. I think it was after the OCIs or the JD students OCI. So it aligned with call day itself. So they're not just calling just the students, the JD students, they're calling students from the NCAA OCI as well. So, but I think the NCAA OCI itself, as OCI network, had sent out an email that you would get a call on exactly on call day. So yes, they did send an email after to just remind you, like, if you're successful, or if you have made the rounds, you will get a call on call day, because you don't get to hear back from the firms. You don't hear anything. It's like you've done what it's like you go in, you do the 10-minute speed dating, and then you come out. And that's it. So, and then I did get an email back from NCA Network, and they just put in an email that, oh yes, you will get a call on call day. If you do get successful, we wish you all the best, and that's it. So yes, on call day, you sit down by your phone, and you just wait. And then
Exactly.
you wait for the call. So yes, and when you get the call, I think it's 9 a.m. because the LSO has a date. You can call. You have to call students between 9, like in the morning on XYZ dates. There's a
I think
whole
it's at 8
guideline.
8 a.m. I think it's at 8 a.m.
Okay, maybe it was that. I think I got my call around 9, I believe. And then they call you around 9, and then you have to schedule your in-firm interview. So when they call you, they'll like, this is interview week. And I think the interviews are usually like the first day and the second day, or is the first day? I really don't remember anymore. So they call you and you schedule a date. So I remember on that day, the first call I got was at 9. So I got 2 callbacks. So I had the 2 firms that I was interviewing with at the same time, and so I scheduled both my interviews as well.
That's great. And then how did you schedule those? Did you put them both on like the first day of the interviews, like early in
Yeah,
the morning?
I did do in the mornings because at the same time I'd been applying to other firms that I didn't go through the NCA OCI with, and I'd gotten feedback from them as well. So I was also interviewing with those firms as a lateral hire. So it was just like I didn't want to do too much at the time. So I'd scheduled my first interview in the morning, and the next one I'd scheduled it like just afternoon because I had another interview that I was also supposed to go to as well. And the interviews went pretty well. It was a very stressful day. I'm not going to lie to you. It was very hectic. Just running around, going for the interviews, meeting people. It can be very daunting. I'm not going to lie, but I feel like the lawyers that I met, they want to know, like, they look at your resume, they ask you questions, but the interviews were like, they're intense. The interviews they're pretty intense because you just keep going, you meet people, because maybe it was just me because I expressed an interest in certain areas like that I like, so I just felt like the questions just kept coming. It was one of the like toughest interviews that I'd been going for lots of interviews before, but for some reason I just felt like it's a summer job. Why should I be so stressed out? Like it was really intense. Like I can see why students say it's something that you have to commit to it. Like you have to keep going with it as well.
Did they ask you, first of all, what was the structure? Did you was it panel interviews, or it was you had a host and then they would take you from like office to office to meet with one of the 3
Okay.
people that you were supposed to see that day?
Yes. So you would get like a list of your interviewers, and I didn't have a panel interview, but I did have like at least 2 to 3 people. But then you'd have different sessions. You would meet this first set of 3 people. You would finish. You take like a 5-10 minute break. You'd go. You meet this next set of people. You would finish, and then you go. You meet the next set of people. So they do that so that way you're able to like at least interview with different lawyers in the firm, especially if you've expressed an interest in an area of law that you are interested in. They want to be able to know, okay, can you maybe like relate with somebody, connect with somebody on their experiences, things that they've done or work that they've done. So I remember like my first interview probably lasted about 3 hours because I thought I was going to be done at 12, but in my mind I was like, this isn't going to happen. It wasn't feasible because I had my next interview that I'd scheduled, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to miss this interview. And I was like, I really don't want to miss this interview. So yes, it wasn't a panel. I think some people generally have panel. I don't know if that's a
Some
thing.
firms.
Some firms have a panel, but yes, it was structured into like, so my first interview was structured into like 3. I had to meet like 3 people. So yes, they would take you from one office, and you would have your associate firm, your associate host. He would come take you. When you finish, they'll come back, they'll get you. You go to the next office, you finish the interview, they come back, they get you. You finish the next. So it was a whole day of just walking into offices, meeting people, interviewing. And during the interviews, I know like a lot of people ask me questions like, oh, like, why Canada? Like, why did you like, move to Canada? Like, have you found, and to be honest, like, you have to be honest, like I said, it's like people want to know that you're genuine, and, you're not like trying to deceive anybody or like manipulate or do whatever it is. Like, so I just be yourself. There's nothing, as I think anything that I will say out of this is just be yourself. And I know like even just having that elevator pitch, sorry, my coffee pitch, that's what I like to call it. just in my head, it saves you that extra 2 minutes of trying to like figure out, oh my God, what will I say when they ask me, so that's pretty much covered. And so you want to like, be able to say like, because to me, I just talked about things like, how I just felt like kind of there's like no limitation of what you can do. Like you should be able to like explore different areas of law. And as much as we've touched on the fact that, oh, fine, you probably don't want to stray too far. If you feel like, criminal law is what you want to do and you're going to be vested in it, I'm sure you can get it. It's possible. There's nothing that's impossible. So I just happen to be interested in something else. So it's like you have to focus your energy on the things that you want. So that way you're not like, personally, I felt like I burnt so much energy and time wasted just doing things that I shouldn't have been doing. And if I just, at that point narrowed myself down and, settled, I probably, but when you start having coaches and you have mentors and you have sponsors, like those kind of things, they help you because those people are like, they're after like, they want the best for you. They have your best interest. I did mock interviews with people that like I'm like, just interview me, like act like you're these people and you want to interview me. So I did do mock interviews before the actual interviews, and I think the actual interviews were a lot more difficult, to be honest, because
Really?
it's one thing, yeah, it's one thing to like, you can see your mentors interviewing you and you can,
You're more relaxed, like even if
you're
you
more
pretend.
relaxed, exactly. And the pressure isn't there, but it's like on call day, we're seeing tons of students. Everybody's in the halls, everybody's just moving. They're switching one person, and associates is moving out. So I'm like, oh my God, like, what is happening? So and I think they asked me about my experience. They asked me about my interests, like because you meet so many people at the firm. They literally touch on every single thing on your resume. Because if you're meeting 8, 9, 10 people, it's a 2-pager resume and it's your cover letter. Somebody will find something to talk about. Like they'll definitely find something. So it's like, that's why they say you have to know your resume. You have to know it in and out. It's like you at the back, because you won't have time to like, oh, let me grab my resume and quickly remember what I wrote. No, it doesn't work like that. So it's like, they'll sit there, they'll ask you questions, and it's possible for somebody else to touch on something that maybe another recruiter like touched on, but you didn't get to answer, or you feel like you didn't get to answer or address the question appropriately. So if you get the opportunity to address that question again, you want to be able to make sure like you satisfy, give them a satisfactory answer that works for them as well.
That's great. Do you remember any particular questions that they asked you that kind of caught you by surprise?
Well, I wouldn't say by surprise, because I knew what was on my resume. I know a lot of people ask me about the NCA, because I think the recruiters know about the NCA, but the lawyers themselves don't. They're not very too familiar. I think people are starting to get familiar. I know some people are like, oh, so how is that process? Like, what does it entail? So people ask me about the NCAs. The recruiters know, because I think they're pretty, they know it's a standard. So I didn't get that question on the NCA OCI day, but like on interview day, I know some people ask me about my NCAs, and they're like, oh, so this is what it is, I think. And then what else did they ask me? I know somebody asked me about my volunteer experience, because I think it's a thing. People want to know what else you do apart. They're like, we know you want to be a lawyer. We know. Let's skip that part. So they asked me about my volunteer experience, and I know like for one of my experiences, I said I'd worked at PBS in family court, and she was quite interested. She was like, I like, how is it like law? Like you do corporate law. I see your resume is filled with like corporate stuff, but then you did family law for like 4 months with PBSC, and she was like, how was it? And I was very honest, and I was like, I liked it up until when it was very stressful. And I couldn't do it because, and I told her I'm somebody who they want to know like you're human at the end of the day. And I told her, I'm somebody who I get sometimes emotional, and it's like family law isn't like, the people who do it are very strong people. Like I don't know how they do it. And I told her, like, I just couldn't do it anymore. So it's just like I'm out. So I think they asked me questions about that as well. They asked me questions about my experience at Osgood. How the transition was, coming from Nigeria and moving into here, like new country. They asked me because they're like, oh, do you have family here? They want to know if you have like ties, connections. So I was like, no, I just moved. It was just, I had a cousin, and they're like, so they wanted to know more, like, so how's that been, doing that, doing the master's at Osgood, like how did you find? So they asked me questions about that. I think one of the lawyers asked me about the paper that I wrote, because I put it on my resume, my research paper, one of my research papers. And because for the some firms, I didn't send my research paper. Like I said, I tailored my resume, my cover letter. But I think for some of the firms, for that particular firm, that interview, I put my research paper on there. And she'd ask me, oh, why did you write about this paper? Like, tell me more about it. So we spoke a bit about that as well. And so, yeah, I think those are the questions, like my NCA, why I was looking at the firm, my interests. They were always very big on your interests, like, what your other passions are. And they asked me about volunteering, things that, you like to do, because I expressed like I was doing volunteering for XYZ and just going for events. What else did they ask me that I think would be helpful to people? I think those kind of things. They did touch on things in my experience, like work experience, like things that I'd done in the past, how you'd work here, like transactions that you've done. Tell me about your job experience. How they did talk about that. But mostly I would say they focused more on my interests, hobbies, volunteering, and my education as well, because they're like, oh, tell me about the NCAs. How does that work? So what's the next step after you finish that? Like, I can see you said you have your certificate of completion, and I was registered to do the Canadian securities course as well. So they asked me about that. So they're like, okay, so these are things that you're working on to be able to get to where you want to be, because you're saying you want to be specialized in capital markets and securities. So I remember one of the lawyers was like, yeah, this is a good one to have. If you're really interested in building that practice area, she's like, yeah, this is something that you do want to have, and I can see that you're studying that. So she's like, that shows that you're putting in the work. So if there's an interest in something that you like and you're doing a professional exam in that, yeah, I think those kind of questions they asked me.
That's great. So was there a follow-up interview or follow-up interviews?
Okay, so after the interview day, which is very hectic and very stressful because there's tons of people. I mean, I don't know how people who had 10 interviews, because I know some people maybe had 10 interviews. I don't know how they schedule it, but
they tend to cancel a lot.
Yeah,
especially if they have follow-ups. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. It's because if you think about it, it's time consuming for you to sit down. And to me, I just wanted to give my best. And it's like, if I spend roughly an hour prepping to just interview with 2 people, if I'm going to interview with 20 people, I should be spending 20 hours? That's a lot of time. But anyways, I'm sure there are people who do it. I mean, it's no exception, because at the end of the day, people just want to get something. So you finish, and then you go back, and then you get a call back for dinner. Infirm, I think they invite you for cocktails and infirm dinner. So they're like, oh, after the interview, usually I think it's your associate host who lets you know if the firm wants to see you back, come back again. So I got back to both firms again. I was going back to both firms that I was going for. The other one, I think I told them that, what, I'm going to just focus on these guys. Like the other 2, I just like, I feel like I'm getting closer to what I'm looking for. I felt bad at the time because it's just like, what if it doesn't work? But I was like, you have to commit yourself. So I told the other guys, like, okay, I'm not going to, chase this any further. I'd like to just focus my energy on, these 2 guys and, see where it takes me. So you get your callbacks. The next day I went back for another interview the next day, and was more interviews. But this time I was meeting people, more like senior people in the practice area because the first interview was like, they put one person from like, the group itself, and then maybe one person from your practice area, but then they have other people as well, like just in the practice area. But this time it was like key people in like the area that I said that I wanted to work in, like investment funds and specific securities. So I had another interview the next day, both firms again. So it's just like I was just running back and forth, and I was like, holy, is this ever going to end? So I remember like going for the second ones. I met people again. It was really nice. This time you're meeting like heads of like, departments or whatever it is, so that way they want to get to know you. And it's another interview, same questions. Some people ask you different questions. And I remember like one of the interviews that I'd done at BLG at the time. He was it was such a pleasure to interview me. He was an awesome guy, and it didn't even feel like an interview, to be honest. Like I felt like, we were chatting, and I think for me I just established some connection. I was like, because at first I was like, no, it's the other one. I'm going definitely with the other one. Well, after the interview with him, I was like, yeah, definitely. I think I want to go here, because he didn't even make me feel like, it was an interview. He's like, yeah, just talk to me. Like, let me know, like, how's it been? Like, so you finished the NCAs. I was like, well, what is that about? So he just spoke to me. And I think it was one of the best interviews I had because I listened more. It was just him, giving advice and, talking about his story. So I finished that interview. You finish and then you go back and then you wait because you have to wait because that's the day they'll let you know if you I think the next day is when they give out offers or something. Yeah. So you have to wait. And I remember I finished and everybody, because you come back again next day, you see people interviewing because it's the same thing. People are in and out, just less people now than the people you saw on the first day. So we finished and I remember going off to a friend's place. And I was just waiting because you have to wait by your phone to see who calls you back. So I finished the interviews early in the day, and then they let you know if they'll invite you over for dinner. So I waited, and then I got called back to come back for dinner. So it's like a whole thing. You're going back for dinner again at night, and now they're pairing you with other lawyers from the firm. So you go for the infirm. So I got called back to go to both dinners again. I was just like, oh my God, it just doesn't end. So it's like you can experience why you understand why it's a whole day exercise. Like the amount of time it takes them to organize this thing, it's impressive because just doing that, getting students to come over for dinner, so it was a lot. So I did that. And
tell me more about the dinner. How was the dinner?
it was very, I won't say casual. It was like formal casual, but then you get to meet people like different, because now you're in a setting that is not just, it's outside of work. It's still a work event, but it's outside of work. You can chat with different people, and if you're lucky enough to have interviewed with somebody who's, because they pair you with a lawyer or lawyers that you've interviewed with, or maybe somebody in department or team, anybody from the firm, they'll just pay you. So it's always nice because you can reach out and be like, oh, I interviewed with you earlier, and you can have that, you can establish that connection, talk to the person, and they're like, oh, yes. So it was really, I don't know how to explain it. It was it's formal, but it was more of a chance to get to know, for the students to get to know the firm. That's how I'll put it. Like, it's not a dinner for them to ask us more questions. It's more like, oh yeah, you guys want to know us more, fine, this is outside of work, so please feel free to and they'll talk about the firm, they'll talk about different things. And I know one of the firms, they paired me with like two people, like a senior partner for like one of the department I went, because I was scared. I was like, oh my God, I'm on the table with like the most senior person. Like, what am I going to go? But at the end of the day, it's like, you just have to be relaxed enough, because it's you trying to get to know them. They just want to see, oh, fine, can you connect, interact with your other students, other lawyers, because at the end of the day, it's like when you join the firm, you're still students, but you're all lawyers at the end. You're just training to be lawyers. So it's like you want to be part of that team. So I would say they were pretty okay. Just chill, nothing too stressful. But it's still an interview if you think about it, because they'll ask you questions. It is still an interview in a way, and you want to be able to do your best. You can't. There's just nothing you can do at this point. Like, all you can do is just give it your all, I would say.
What about, so dinners can go to different ways. They can be more formal, so they can still see it as an interview opportunity to ask you more about your interest about the firm, but they can also not talk about it at all.
Mhm.
So I've had this discussion a lot with other students. For example, my dinner, we spent almost 2 hours discussing about trips. And then in the last 5 minutes, they're like, so what do you want to practice again? So it's interesting because some people may give you the advice that you should kind of steer the conversation toward what you want to get out of the dinner. And not many students go to the dinner with a goal in mind. I mean, yes, the goal is to be hired, but what is the goal? Is it to establish a connection? How do you establish a connection with the partner in that area?
I mean, to me, it wasn't to be honest, when I was going for those dinners, my first dinner, I was going with the intention to be hired, because I was like, this is the firm that I want to be with, because I've been, chasing that one. And the second one, I was just like, yeah, I'm just going to go. Like, I'll see you wherever it goes, it goes. And it was like, because I'd had that interview like just the day before, I was like, oh yeah, maybe I should switch sides now and excuse me, and switch sides and just focus on this one. I think as much as you want to be able to steer the conversation, you don't want it to be all about work, because they know, like, it's as simple as, oh, can you pull her resume? I can, like, just flip over, like, through when they're at work. So it's not so much as like steering the conversation towards, like, work related kind of things, but it's like you have to have a balance. You have to be able to, like, at the same time, I'm talking about my interests, like, oh yes, I do want to specialize in, capital markets and securities, but then they'll ask you something else, or something else might pop up. It's a conversation, you're between like 2-3 people, and people are asking you, oh, what are your interests? And so, the lawyers, they just finish work, they don't want to come talk about more work. It's like, so I would say you have to find a balance. I know some people say it's hard because you start and then you're just talking about random things, but at the end of the day, if you feel like, oh, I came here for a job, so I just have to talk about this. No, I personally, I went there because I wanted to get more out of the firm. I'm like, you know what? If it worst case, I want to be able to know that, I've established that connection or that nexus with some people, and if it doesn't work, I should be like confident enough to send like an email and be like, oh, you know what, I would like to meet you up later after today to, like, meet for coffee or something else. The first one, yes, I did go with the mindset that, yes, I just wanted this job. So I went in there, and it just so happened that we didn't end up talking too much about, like, work thing. It was mostly like, it was like a big dinner. It was a big room with lots of people in there. So there wasn't really time to, like, to take one person away and be like, say this. The second dinner was mostly like, it was a big hall, but they put like me with like 2 people, and so that way you get that more personal feeling. And I like that sense of, I'd they put me in a place where I could like interact with these people. So those kind of things kind of like endear to me, where I know, oh yes, I can like talk to these people, because I'm somebody who's not, I don't want to do too much. I don't like crowds in the first place.
Yes.
So I think those things just work for me. So it was easier for me to have conversations in my other dinner than the one where it was just lots of people, and I was like,
The
yes,
cocktail reception. Isn't that a type of cocktail reception?
well, we did have that the next, it's a whole thing. That was the next day. So
The third day or the second
no,
day?
so the first day we had the dinner after the interviews. Then the second day you have the
Cocktail reception.
cocktail reception at the firm. So that one's more, that one's chill. I can tell you for a fact that
Is it chill though? Because I've heard different. I've heard that you should go not be the first one to show up and not be the last one to leave, and
somebody's
then
got to show up, right? Somebody has to show up, right? So it's somebody at some point.
yes, you should show up. You should not stay more than a specific, I don't know, amount of minutes, and then you should meet the targeted people by your host, and then leave after half an hour. So I've
Wow.
heard so many different stories about what's the proper
I
presentation during the cocktail
Sometimes I
reception.
thought I was having too much fun at my interviews then, because I
You didn't think about
that
it.
feeling of like, you had to leave. Oh, I did leave early. I do remember, because I was tired and it was getting too late for me. And I'd been up and about all day, just running around those
Yes.
interviews. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. It's almost 11. I have to leave. I just need sleep right now. So I did leave early. So maybe you're probably all right. Maybe you have to leave early. I don't know. But I was early. I didn't want to be late. I'll tell you that much for sure. I'm not somebody who likes to be late. I like to be on time. So yes, I was early. If it means I'm the first person there, I'm very, but it just so happens that they're very prompt, which is something that I liked as well. I got there like, maybe 7, but there were people already there. So it means that they knew that, students are coming. We have to be here. So it was something that I liked as well. I remember like for my other dinner, a little bit, but it's okay. It's fine. I just happen to be extra early sometimes. So I did get there and there were people there. So that gives you, just before that rowdiness of everybody's like talking, you still have that opportunity to be able to like meet some people. Because I did have the opportunity to meet like a couple lawyers that I hadn't met. But because I got there early enough, they were there because they're like, yeah, we know students are coming, so we might as well just come here like it's 20 minutes before, 15 minutes before. And so I got there early. I was able to conversate with those people. So I think, yeah, it really helped. I ended up not being on the same table with them, but I remember like the next day when we went back for the infirm cocktails, it was nice because I'd already met them before, and I was like, oh, nice, we met yesterday. And they're like, oh yeah, we met you
It's
before.
nice. And you didn't follow up with emails with the people that you met?
Oh no, after the dinner, no, I didn't. It's just too many names. I can't remember
It
everybody.
is.
It's just, I'm sorry, I just can't.
Yeah.
So no, I didn't do that.
Did you
And
have
then
a third day interview?
No. So it was the next day. So the next day I went for my second dinner because the first one I'd gone, but it wasn't too long because, like I said, I was so tired that day. I'd gone for 2 dinners, so I had to leave one dinner because I remember my associate did. She called me. She's like, they want you to come for the dinner today. If you, so I was like, okay, I have to like start like prioritizing where I'm going to be. So I had to like leave, and then I was having some issues that day as well. So it was just everything happened so like it was too much. It was a lot of things to do, and so the next day I went back for the cocktail with the firm, and it's nice because you get to see the students that they've narrowed it down to, because you guys are like just there. You sit down. It's pretty. It was fun. I wouldn't say like as much as it wasn't as formal as the interviews. The interviews were very gruesome. I'll tell you that one for sure. Like because they'll ask you questions. They'll drill you. They'll grill you because they're trying to pick students that they feel like bring something unique to the firm.
Exactly.
So yeah, they'll ask you questions for sure. Like I think it was one of the, I didn't think in my mind I was just like, oh, I've done interviews before. It's like, what's this? But no, it was a lot. I can tell you because I remember that day was they will ask you so many questions. I remember I came out of that interview like, why am I sweating so much? I was like, oh my god, like but it was good because that way like they're not coming here to joke. It's not a joke. Like as much as you think, oh, it's just a summer position, it's your introduction to the firm. It's how you get to meet people and stuff like. So it was one. It's kind of like stressful. So yeah. So the next day was just the cocktails. Like, do I call them cocktails? Lunch.
The cocktail reception, yeah.
Cocktail
Well,
reception.
people choose not to drink, so you can be a cocktail or not.
I don't think it was alcohol. But come to think about it, I don't think so. I'm not sure
They usually have, but you can stay away from it.
Maybe they do. I don't remember. I know there was food, and I was on the table with partners, and they were really nice. You get to meet people because then they put you like with people that you haven't met before. I was meeting um heads, like the practice heads of like other departments, but they're like tied in the same group. So maybe you're meeting somebody from FSG, or you're meeting somebody from equity and capital markets, but it's like they're all tied to the same group that you were working, but not the exact same things, like the arm and the leg kind of thing. So I was meeting different people, and they're like, oh, I've heard so much about you, like and then that way you establish a connection, you chat with people. So yes, it was good. And
What
then they
about, I'm sorry, just to ask, they say that by the end of your second night, you should kind of indicate which one is your priority in terms of firms. Did you do that?
Oh yes, that's why by the second night I'd switch ships.
Okay.
Yes, I knew because at first I was going the other way, but then like I said, I had such a great interview at the other side. So I by the first day I was like, okay, I hadn't exactly made up my mind, but by the next day I knew. I was just like, okay, I have to switch right now. This is it. And I was like, I remember telling my associate, I was like, yeah, I'm all in now. Like this is it. It's because I like if I miss this one, that's it. I'm done. Like So, but yes, you should be doing that at the second day, because that way you want to be able to focus your energy, and you're not like you don't have interest here and there, because that way if you're half in and half out, there's just so much that you can do. I know some people are very good at doing that, but I personally, I wanted to just give my all. And at first I was going one direction, and I just knew that I wanted to go the other way. So I quickly made that switch, and I guess it worked for me.
And you let them know. Did you do
Yes,
that?
I did let them know that I wasn't going to be interested. Maybe that's the
No,
word.
usually let them know that if you extend me an offer, I would accept you, or like your firm is like my number one, things like that.
Well, this was at the second day. Like, so I did tell them that because they asked me, oh, I think they asked me if I was interviewing at other firms or something. I think I said yes, but I didn't want to like what's the word now, like throw the other one aside. But I didn't make them my top priority. If I'm going to be very honest, I didn't make them my top priority. So the firm that when I realized that I needed to make the switch, I did, and then I focused more of my energy on the other firm. And I was interviewing with BLG more, because at first I just knew I wanted to go the other way. So I was like, it's this firm. But then I'd had, like I said, the interview with one of the lawyers at BLG, and it was just so fantastic. And I was like, I should, like, why am I not, here? Like, why exactly? So I think I made that decision to switch. And I didn't want to throw, like you said, you have to make the switch in your head, but you don't have to let them know like right there on the spot, like, I'm not doing this, because you go back for a second interview, right? You go back. I remember,
Exactly.
yeah. So the next
Yeah, you're
day,
not closing any doors, but if you can like build a stronger relationship in your interviews and let them
exactly.
know that I'm having a good time here,
Yes.
they can.
So which was what I did at BLG, and I expressed my interest that this was what I was doing, and I'm really committing myself to this, because at first I didn't go, to be honest, I didn't go with intention. I was just so focused on the other one. But like you said, when you realize that, oh, okay, which one do I want to, you got to pick one. You can't have both. That's, to be honest, you can't have both. Like, so I quickly made the switch, and I was like, okay, I'll focus more of my energy on BLG.
Exactly. It's very important to be present in those interviews because you go with one impression, but then you feel, and you should trust your feelings because if you feel like you belong somewhere, go with that.
Yes, because I started and I was like, yeah, I definitely belong with the other one. But as I was interviewing and meeting people, I was like, yeah, I need to be here. This is where I want to be. They had, like, all the firms I chose were very good, so I knew, like, at the back of my mind, like, every one of those firms I would work well with, or I would be happy to be in. But just going through those interviews, it kind of like you have some sense of, like, connection, things like, that you want to, like, do. And they had, like, so I was just like, yeah, so now it's this one, I'm definitely for sure going to go this way.
Awesome. And you didn't have any days on the call day, like in interviews that day?
No interviews on Wednesday. I think Wednesday is the
Wednesday.
call. Yes. So no interviews, because you have to wait. Everybody's just home and waiting, and you're just, because people are tired. Some people have to travel back. I remember one of the girls that I'd bonded with, just going over with the dinner. She had to travel back, and she's like, I hope I don't get the call when I'm, like, on the road or something, because she doesn't live in Toronto, and she was like, she had to go back today because she'd been, like, staying around. So it's like you're going around, and as much as you think it's just a 2L position, some of the students, this 2L student, they've done so much. They've finished their MBAs, they're doing PhDs. I'm like, oh my God, like, so it's not. And that was when it hit me, like, I was there thinking, oh my God, I don't want to do a 2L, not knowing, like, some of people, they finished their first degrees, they finished
Their
something else,
second or third degrees.
second or third degrees. So I remember meeting exciting people, and speak different languages, and I was like, okay, so now it's not just because we think, like, the traditional 2L is just because they go to the OCIs, they're just 2L students. They're not just, there's no such thing as just a 2L student. There are people who have had degrees behind them. They have the same amount of experience that you've had. They've had 2 degrees, they've done a master's, they're doing this, an MBA, they're doing the JD and an MBA. It's like, so it's a lot of things at the same time. I remember I was just waiting, and then you get the call, and they're like, okay, yes, we like you so much, we like you to join. You're like, oh, thank you so much. And then you're like, but it's an icing on the cake after the 3 days or the 2 days of
Definitely.
intense, just getting that feeling, and even just getting the feeling of, like, oh, probably won't go. You're like, okay, it's fine. I stressed out right now. Like, I'm okay. I'm happy, with whatever, call that I've gotten and the decision that I got. So yes, I think it works out that way perfectly.
What would you advise students that are going through the process now, based on your experience?
I would say you have to prepare. There's nothing as putting together a good package. You want to be able to, because the recruiter is the person who's going to get you in, because they have a student committee, right? But the recruiter is the person. So you have to, there's nothing as planning. There's nothing like having a strategy, networking, and then having your pitch. If you feel like you haven't been networking, I feel like you can still, somehow tailor your pitch into your resume. Just, you have to be able to establish some sort of nexus so that the recruiter or whoever's looking at your resume will want to be like, oh yeah, I like this resume. I want to, get to know more about this person. So I would say, first things first, send your resume to as many people as you can, get feedback. It is key. That is the first thing. And I think, I don't know how long it is between now and when the NCA, the next one is.
End of January for some
End of January. I would
positions.
say network. There's still time. We're in October. I would say network with so many people. Reach out to lawyers, not just lawyers, to be honest. You can reach out to students. I found like I was reaching out to students because I felt like it'd be easier for me to talk to the students than it would be for me to talk to the lawyers. So I would talk to one student, and the student would be like, no, okay, you talk to this lawyer. she's nice, or because they're in the firm, they know, the lawyers that are approachable, people who like to work with students, people who, do this kind of work that you're interested in. So I would say between now and then, network as well. So you want to make sure you have your resume, your package well put together. You want to be able to network with people, not just lawyers. You want to be able to network with actually like look for students that have gone through the same process as you, reach out to those students, talk to them, just try and, understand the experience, because it's not just going after the job. You want to be able to know about the person and their practice and what they're doing. So I would say do that as well. And if you have sponsors and mentors, you can just reach out to them at the same time and just, they can interview you. Because I reached out to my mentors and sponsors, because I usually don't have that. I didn't have that, mentorship and sponsorship initially. But when I started having people as my mentors, and I would like reach out to them, oh, do you mind, looking at this, from a second eye, just give me feedback. So it's like I would take whatever one person said, I would look at what the next person said, and I would like compare. I'd be like, oh, okay, so it means they're saying the exact same thing. So I would say do that. And what else would I say? Because it's all about planning. And some people are very lucky with sending out mass applications. It might work for you. It just didn't work for me. So I would say you have to be specific. Just like I said, strategy. Be very strategic about what places that you want to apply and the practice that you want to build. So I think those are the things that I would say.
That's perfect. Now let's go to your summer experience. How was that? Did you have to prepare for that?
Nothing prepares you for the summer. The firm prepares you for the summer. And to be honest, I would say I don't have any regrets. I'm so happy that I did that summer position, because as much as I was like, why will I be doing a summer position? I feel like I'm too experienced for this. I shouldn't do this. The things that you wouldn't even remember that you don't know. They're just those, little things. And I would say BLG did a fantastic job, just getting us ready for that summer. Nothing prepares you. You're just like, yeah, I'm just going to do my summer. It's like, yeah, whatever. I'm like, it's a summer. It'll go by so fast. Oh no, you're in there, you're working. So I would say my summer experience was great. It was a bit unusual, because we were expecting to do it, in person, and it was just different, getting to do that transition and doing it virtually. And it was kind of different, because you would hear people like, oh, it would have been different if you were in the office, things would have been like this. But I think, and not just BLG, just all the firms in general, I think, because I know some of the people who got positions in other firms. And for personally, I'm going to speak about my experience at BLG. I think they did a fantastic job just transitioning people and getting, people set up on working from home, and just engaging students in meaningful work. Because at first we're like, how are we going to get work? Like, how do you we're not, we were all scared. Like the same fears I was having was the same fears, my other students, my colleagues were having. Like, how do you bond with people? Because it's all about establishing that relationship with the lawyers that you would like to work with. And you have your mentors, and usually your mentors should be able to take you to people's offices, introduce you to people, meet people that you didn't. There's no hallway on the virtual platform, as we say. There's no hallway. There's no, oh, I'm going to have coffee and then I'll bump into this person on the way. We don't have that. So I would say just, initiatives that they put together, the professional team, making sure that students were set up, and just getting us meaningful work, engaged, and letting lawyers know the students are here. You have to give them work. So, and I would say, yes, I had such a great experience, and I worked with the lawyers that I worked with. They were all fantastic lawyers. And when I started working, I knew, I was like, yes, I made the right choice. That I don't think I would have wanted to be anywhere else than here, because I got to do work that, even though I felt like, oh my God, I know these things, they're just different when you do them in practice. And we were working, and then I made new friends, because you have people, and then you're like talking to people every day, because you're on the phone with the students and you're working. And then, but we did have breaks. So we had breaks where you'd do events with people. So even though we're socially distancing, we're still connected. And that's what I liked about my experience. I still felt connected to the firm, even up until my last day of work. I know some people were like, oh, my first 2 days before, I didn't do much. I didn't have anything to do. Oh no, I was working till like, the core, like the last day, and, just learning things like docketing properly. They make sure they train you on those things. Like, they make sure they train you like legal research, like using research tools, how to docket properly, going for like events, making sure like, you have things. They keep the students engaged, just outside of work, because we know, like, they know, like, oh, you have commitments to the lawyers. The lawyers are your clients, so you still have commitments, but they still try to take you away from that, and you're not just sat down. And they would encourage us to like go out, take a walk, because we know everybody's like sat at their desk and it's COVID, but still keep safe, but just relax and take some time. And I had my mentors were fantastic as well. So I would have to, like, my mentors, I would like touch base with them every week. They're like, oh, how's it going? And, things like that. But yes, it was, my experience was really great.
Did you have to like do something on your end to keep in touch, like to kind of remind them your presence, to ask them to be involved in like deals?
I mean, they did such a good job with connecting. Well, for myself, so I had two mentors, and I would touch base with my mentors every week, because I just said it like that. I would do one on a Monday and one on a Friday. So I had that, connection.
That's
And
great.
like, yes, I would, they pair everybody up, because they've known what you've expressed your interest, or what they feel like your strengths are, where you, because at the end, it's not, that's how you see like it works differently in firms. Like they know where somebody would fit better. Like, I don't know how they know these things, but they just know. And then they pair you with somebody who they feel like, would be able to like, you can look up to as a mentor. And then I remember, like, so I didn't have to, like, because I had such a good schedule with them, and it's like an open, like how I said it, open call policy. Like, I would reach out to my mentors, even though we had scheduled like weekly calls. She could just shoot me a quick email, oh, do you mind doing this work for me? I have this. Or sometimes, and I know one of the things that I did while at BLG was, how do you network even from home? Because I still had to
Yes.
network with lawyers. So they prep you for those kind of things. Like, when you start like orientation week, they'll tell you like, you can still reach out to lawyers. Lawyers are very open, they're very approachable. So I remember I would tell myself every week, like, I would reach out to like two lawyers at the minimum, to just introduce myself, network, because you have an experience, you have some interest in their practice. But what you don't want to do is reach out to so many people, so that when work comes and then you have like your other work, you can't deliver.
Yes.
It just doesn't work like that. So I found like, networking virtually was a bit tough, but it wasn't as tough as I thought it was going to be. I thought it would be very hard, but like, I would just send a quick email and be like, oh, I looked at your practice, I like what you do. Do you mind spending, 10 minutes, just talking with me? Because it'll be, from what we were told, it would have been a different experience if we were, in the office, going in, you would meet people. But because now you have to do some work yourself. So I would, reach out to lawyers that I'd, experienced, and I'd ask my mentors, who are the people you feel like, I should be reaching out to in this department if I'm looking for this type of work. And they'd be like, oh, that one's a good resource. You should reach out to the person, or this person's a good resource. And you just have to sit down, create your email, oh, hi, introduce yourself. It's your elevator pitch again, but now it's in an email. And they know you're in the firm, but you still have to introduce yourself, like, this is me, I'm interested in your practice, blah, 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 yada, yada. And, oh, if you have time for a quick call, I'd like to schedule something. Some people are very nice, and they're like, oh yeah, I'll do a video call. Some people are like, oh, I don't have time for a video call, but let's do audio. And quick 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and that's how they're like, okay, fine, I don't have anything right now. If I do, I will, like, some people did have work for me, like, right now, and then you would do the work as well. So it's just networking virtually. I think was one of the things that students were like, oh, how do we do this? Well, it turned out perfectly.
That's great. What about networking with the other students? Because that's important too. If you need to like, create the bonds to, they are your support system.
Yeah, that I wouldn't say, like I said, BLG did such a fantastic job. Like, we were meeting at least 3-4 times a week. Like, we had weekly calls. Like, every morning we'd had coffee chats. We had Thursday happy hours. So it's like I didn't feel the need to want to network with them, because I know them. Like, we see each other all the time. And then I think the virtual world, you get into this little like breakout session. So you're always with somebody different. So as much as we were like scared about how it was going to, the transition, the feeling would be. We had all this little touch base. So I think from my fellow students as well, that I didn't feel like I needed to network separately, because I would see them, continuously, like every week, like at least 2-3 times a week. And if not, you have resources to be able to like touch base with people, or you're working with 2 different students on an assignment. So it's like, you're connected, you are all connected in a way. And then you have your group, your WhatsApp group, where everybody's just, talking about things. So yes, it is good to like network with them as well. But because we had that, I don't know how it is at other firms, I can't speak to that, but I know like for us, we already had that connection even from the first day. Like we already felt like, we could like, I can reach out to somebody else who I know, I don't have expertise in tax, but I feel like this person is doing tax, so I'm just going to shoot the person a quick email and just ask, or just, send the person a quick message on WhatsApp. And that's still networking, like, oh, hi, I'm another student, we're both students, and we know, I need your help with this. And they're very, very more than happy to like help you. Okay, let's jump on a call tomorrow and like, figure this out so we can get the work done.
Perfect. That's awesome. Unless you have anything else to raise that I may have missed.
I think to me, I think that's all. Pretty good.
Okay, awesome. And thank you so much. I think this was very helpful. And we will share this with our audience, and then we can get back to you if they have any specific questions for you, or we can just like reply there generic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome.